Hello everyone. My name is Elise. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. We are here to kick off a reading vlog for the Republic of Consciousness Prize, and I'm really excited to start this vlog. I will just acknowledge that I'm a little bit shrouded in darkness right now, so hopefully you can still see okay. I'm starting this pretty early in the morning because it's the only time I can film it today because I have a very busy day, but I need to get it started now because I have already started reading and I don't want to get the cart before the horse, so to speak. So in this portion, we're just going to talk a little bit about my initial reaction to the Republic of Consciousness Prize Longlist US and Canada edition. So if you're not familiar with the prize, this is a prize that celebrates small independent publishers. The majority of the prize money goes to the publisher itself, although there is a small amount that goes to the author and the translator if there is a translator for the book, which I love. And I had a very interesting reading experience last year when I started reading some of the books. So I'm curious to see how this year is gonna go. I'm not gonna go over the entire long list and what all the books are about. That would be a whole separate video for me to do, and I'm just not gonna spend the time here to do it. But I will insert an image that has all of the books that were long listed, just so you can take a little peek if you want. I would highly encourage you to check them out if you are interested in reading from small and independent presses. So what I want to talk about right now is just initial kind of hot takes on the long list in general. I am filming this on February 3rd, so the long list has been out for a little while and I've had a little bit of time to think about it, but I do have some opinions. The first thing that I want to mention is just that I feel like there is a better range of publishers represented here. The first 2 years, there was a lot of overlap. Half of the publishers had been listed the year before, and I'm really happy to see that there are a number of new publishers nominated for the prize. I do think that is in part due to the prize receiving the most nominations that they ever had this year. I think they received something like 43, don't quote me on that number, but they did say it was the most submissions that they've had, and you can see that represented here, I feel like, because realistically, all of these publishers should have works that merit being on the long list. It's just the ones that the judges probably resonate with the most. There is a video on YouTube that one of the judges did that shows every book that was submitted for the prize. I will link that down below, and thank you to Sarah for putting that video on my radar because I had no idea that existed. And I do really like when a prize includes all of the books that were nominated, especially for a prize that's relatively smaller like this one. I do wish he would have released that after the long list came out, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. I'm still happy that it's out there. So it'll be linked down below if you want to check out all of the nominations. So very happy that there is a wider mix of publishers here. The other hot take that I want to put out here is 7 of the 10 books on the long list were included in the newsletter that the Republic of Consciousness sends out in advance of some of the books that the judges are reading and enjoying. And I feel like that's kind of a bummer. I think that spoils some of the books, and I really hope they do not do that next year. I love that they're trying to increase the visibility of the books that are being nominated, but the books that are going to be long listed should not dominate the books that you're trying to increase the visibility for. If anything, you should be trying to increase the visibility of the books that are not going to be long listed, because people are probably never going to look at those again, whereas being on the long list or the short list or even winning is going to have a little bit more staying power for those books. So I am sort of frustrated by that, but again, fingers crossed they won't do it next year, because I don't want to assume that the books they're showing me in the newsletter before the list comes out are the things that are going to be on the long list. So with that, a little bit of a rant, let's go ahead and talk about the books that I will be reading in this video. I will be reading 3 books at least in this video. I think it will be 3. And I'm just picking the books that I'm most interested to read. I did say in my predictions video that I'm committing to reading at least 3 books. And then if the winner is not one of the books that I have already read, I will also commit to reading that book. And then beyond that, I'll just pick up them if I want to. Let's talk about the books. There are 2 books that I am certain I will be reading in this video, and they're going to be the ones that I'm starting off with. The first one is Like a Sky Inside by Jakuta Alikavozovic. And this one is translated from the French by Levin Becker. It's published by Fern Books. I'm not going to go over the synopses right now. I will go over them when I start covering the book in the video, but this is the first pick, and you can see I do already have a bookmark in here because I have already started it. That's the first book. Next up, from the library, I'm going to be reading the audio of Gifted by Suzuki, translated by Allison, Markin, Powell from Transit Books. This just happened to be that I think I chose some of the smallest books on the list. This one, as you can see, is very slim. Gifted is also very slim. I'm thinking I'll probably get through those fairly quickly. And then my last book, I'm sort of undecided right now. I do want to read Your Absence is Darkness by Kalman Steffanson, translated by Roughton, published by Biblioasis. That is one of the longer books on the list, and I would be listening to that also via audio. I've heard very interesting criticism of that book, and it has intrigued me. And then the other one that I'm waffling between is To and Fro by Leah, Hager, Cohen. This is by Bellevue Literary Press, and this is the novel that's mirrored. So there's this side and then there's this side, and you read like halfway through the book as normal, and then at some point it switches and now you can see it's upside down. So this one, very intriguing in the form. I know other books have also done this in the past, so this isn't the first one to do it by any means, but obviously I own this one, so I am also intrigued to read it. I think it's gonna come down to whether or not I need to read the book on audio or I have time to read it in physical form, because I have some other reading that I have to do fairly quickly. I have a buddy read that I need to get done at a certain time, so it will just depend on whether or not my third book I want to do on audio, which will mean it's Your Absence is Darkness, or if I am gonna read it physically, which will mean it's To and Fro. 2 books I'm reading for sure, and then at the end I will decide which third book I'll pick up. So I'll pass it along to future Elise to talk a little bit about the first book. Okay, let's chat a little bit about the first book that I'm reading, which is Like a Sky Inside. It's a little shorty. The synopsis of this one is brief in terms of what the blurb gives you. So this says we're following a narrator who is going to be spending the night in the Louvre. There's also this kind of like intriguing backstory about her father, and her father maybe putting the idea in her head about stealing something from the Louvre. So let me read you the really short blurb that's on the back, because I think it gives a good sense of what the premise of the novel is. It's not even certain that the original purpose of what we call art was to be seen. In a way, we could go so far as to say that art, what we call art, is made less to be seen than to be stolen. So I have read the first about, I think almost exactly 50 pages. Yeah, I've read part 1. This book is divided into 4 parts. So part 1 is where I'll give you some of like the plot that's happening, and then I'll probably stop giving you plot after that. The setup thus far is the narrator is indeed going to be spending the night at the Louvre. She is writing a novel about her family's connection to the Louvre and to art in general, and this is part of her research for it. You also find out that she has a 9-month-old child at home, and we're just getting the beginnings of like maybe she's having exploring some of her thoughts and feelings on parenthood, and that is directly opposed to her own experience with her father, who it's sort of like alluded to is no longer around. Unclear if that's because he has died or what is going on there, but she is reminiscing about these experiences that she had with her father going to the Louvre after he immigrated to Paris. He's kind of recounting his early days there to her, and then they're also creating new memories going together. And the question that he frequently asks her when they go to the Louvre is how she might go about stealing the Mona Lisa. And he starts asking her this at a very young age. I think she's like 5 or something like that. So it's sort of implanted this idea, and she does talk about like wanting to reconnect with her father, and that's part of why she's doing this. You're not really sure if she's going there with the intention to steal something. You're sort of left guessing as to see what's going to happen, which I'm having fun with. It's not propulsive by any means. I would say it's much quieter intrigue, but it is intriguing nonetheless. There is a section in this, I did a little book dart to mark it, where there's a passage that I think speaks to what the novel is grappling with in some ways in terms of art, or maybe why we might steal art. So I'm gonna read that portion to you. This is on page 42, and it says, "We see something we like and we take it. We take it because we wish we could catch the entire moment and hold on to it forever. Swallow the sky, become one with the landscape. But that's just not possible. Time will pass no matter what, and no matter what, the place will remain apart, external. So we lean down and without thinking, pick up a stone and slip it into our pocket in place of the sun or the forest or the sea." And I thought that passage really kind of wrapped up for the narrator why you might be drawn to taking something that you know you're not supposed to take, and helped to get into her headspace a little bit. And I do think there is this element of wanting to hold on to tangible pieces of memories that sort of gets to this idea of nostalgia. So I liked that passage a lot. So I'm early days into this book, but I am really enjoying it so far. We shall see what the next parts have to come. Where this drops off in the plot is that the lights have officially gone out at the Louvre. So she's sort of covered in darkness and is having a little bit of a panic, and then that's where the part ended. So I'll pick it up soon, and I probably won't check back in with you until I've finished it, I'm assuming, just because it is so short. But I'm feeling encouraged thus far that this could be a good fit for me. So I'll see you soon. I have finished Like a Sky Inside. So I'm gonna give you my thoughts overall about the book, and then I have a couple of passages that I want to read again. I said previously that this is done in 4 parts, and I will say I think I liked each part progressively a little bit less. Overall, I did really enjoy this novel, but I think we lost some traction as we moved throughout. There were less and less passages that I felt were profound, and I did really find some passages particularly profound in this. And as the story went on longer and longer, even though this is fairly short, the kind of mysterious element couldn't sustain the same level of intrigue over time. So while I did enjoy this overall, and I would definitely recommend this, I would say I would reiterate that it's a fairly quiet novel. This is a book for people who want to sort of like think about an idea, listen to someone philosophically muse about certain things, particularly art, what it means to be a child and the legacy that you inherit from your family and your ancestors, what it means to be an immigrant. Those are all things that this book is talking about, and I think talks about them well. It just starts to get a little bit repetitive, and some passages I couldn't find the through line. I couldn't understand why they were included. Maybe you will be a smarter reader than me, and this will be a huge win for you, but I do think the writing is stunning. The premise is intriguing enough to warrant the time that you would spend reading this, because again, it's very, very short. I'm pleasantly reporting back that I enjoyed it. It also wasn't too heavy, which I know my reading experience of The Republic of Consciousness in the past has been pretty emotionally heavy. This one felt like just the perfect amount. So that is Like a Sky Inside. So let me read some of the other passages that I bookmarked. The first one has some title integration. I'm a sucker for some good title integration, so I'll just read that here. This is the very beginning of the second section. It says, "I should, I suppose, begin with love, a feeling like a sky inside of us, and like a sky ever changing. Love and the shapes we try to give it, to conjure it, to hold it still. To hold it still is to betray it. It moves on, always. The feeling changes, or the shape it took for us. A body, a face now aged, that tomorrow will no longer exist. Sometimes love lives on alone." And I thought that was lovely, just in the overall simile around love, but the good title integration of comparing it to like a sky that lives inside of us. It's the type of sentimental stuff that I do eat up in a book. And then I marked one other passage. I'm trying to do this all one-handed, so hopefully I'm not shaking you around too much. And this passage is specifically talking about art and what it means to us and what we're talking about when we talk about art. And it says, "A work of art, once recognized as such, appears to be extracted from the cycle that binds us all. It is eternally cared for, eternally cherished. This eternity is an illusion, of course, but the illusion is effective in the sense that it elicits an effect. It works. What I don't talk about each time I talk about art, what haunts me each time I talk about art, are the lives. All the lives history has granted less importance than that raw matter from which art is made. An inch-thick bulletproof glass case for the Mona Lisa in 1963. Nothing 30 years later to stop the bullets whistling in the ears of my family in Sarajevo. And I thought that was also a really moving passage and a really confronting passage. So those were some of my favorite pulls from the book itself. I hope you enjoyed them as well. And I hope it gives you a sense of the style of writing that this book has, and also some of the ideas that it's trying to present to the reader and have them grapple with. First book down, I will come back and report to you when I have started the next one. So I'll see you then. All right, everyone, I have an update for you on this vlog, and it has been a very long time since I've updated this vlog. So I believe in the last clip, I even mentioned the date or something like that when I started the first book. It was like February 3rd, and I finished that book fairly quickly. I want to say I finished it by like February 7th or 6th even. It is now February 27th, so the shortlist is about to be announced. I think it gets announced tomorrow. So this vlog is definitely not going to be out before the shortlist comes. But in some ways that's nice, because I will put a clip in here of my reaction to the shortlist. Basically, it's just because I got super sick. I got very sick and was having brain fog, and I just couldn't focus on books that were a little more complex. I needed to do some easier reading. But I am back in action now, and I have finished Gifted. This is by Suzuki, and it's translated from the Japanese by Allison, Markin, Powell. It's published by Transit Books. This book is about a mother-daughter relationship primarily. We're following our main character, who is she named? I honestly don't remember if she's named or not. Her mother at the very beginning of the book is ill and comes to live with her. That very quickly transitions into her needing to go to the hospital, and our main character is daily visiting with her mom at the hospital. But you come to find out that they have a pretty complicated relationship with one another. Her mom raised her by herself, even though her father had, it appears, some level of interest in knowing her, but her mother was very against it. And her mother was also abusive, and that comes out in a couple different forms. In physical abuse, so trigger warnings for that. There is a depiction of that in the book, and then also just via neglect. Our main character is kind of reflecting and having flashbacks of her time as a child living with her mom, and then also you're getting our main character's current day life outside of the hospital visits with her mother, and she works as a hostess, so within the realm of sex trade in Japan, which she believes that her mother would really be against if she knew. This is a low plot book. It's also very short, which is why I read it in 2 different sittings. So I read it in 2 days and didn't do an update in the beginning, and I'm sort of happy that I did, because I don't think I have a ton to say about this book. I thought it was fine, honestly, at the end of the day. It's really slice of life, slow moving, trying to just present a dynamic of a mother and a daughter, and the types of reflection or the types of memories that come up for us once we're faced with anticipatory grief, and how it presents this unique opportunity for this mother and daughter to reckon a little bit with the past. That makes it sound like there's a lot of that explicitly happening. It's more implicit than that. There's a lot of subtlety in this novel, and I do think it's well written. I just think it didn't pack enough of a punch for me. I was unclear at the end of this novel what I was supposed to take away, and sometimes it's just kind of the beauty and the journey of being in it. But I want to kind of take something away as a reader, whether that's just like a beautiful image or a really lyrical passage
or a love for a specific character. And I just couldn't kind of grab on to anything wholeheartedly in this book. I felt kept at a remove, and I have no doubt that that's intentional, but it's just not my favorite writing style unless I really feel like it's an impactful part of the book, and I didn't get the feeling with this one that it was intentional but not impactful for me. So yeah, this one, I think the writer is accomplished. I think other people who have tastes that more align with a quiet, direct, blunt writing style might appreciate this more than me. And because of that, this is one that I don't think I would personally kind of want to see on the short list. Whereas the previous book, Like a Sky Inside, I would really like to see it on the short list. So those are my thoughts about Gifted. With that, I will see you in the next clip. I am back, and I'm here today with my handy dandy laptop because I'm going to give a little bit of a reaction to the shortlist for the prize, which came out yesterday. Technically, I had a hell of a time trying to find the shortlist because it was not getting updated on the website, but seemingly people knew who the shortlisted books were, and I could not figure out why. I kept refreshing all throughout the day the website. I kept checking my email, couldn't find anything. I finally decided to go to Instagram, and one of the publishing houses that had been shortlisted, how they knew, the world will never know, had posted the rest of the shortlist. So I figured out what it was late last night, but is now on the website as of this morning on February 28th. So we're gonna just give some initial thoughts on the shortlist, but I'll run through the 5 books that made it really quickly. The first book is Like a Sky Inside by Jakuta Alikavozovic, and it's translated by Daniel Levin Becker. This is the one by Fern Books that I've already read earlier in the video, and I'm really happy this got shortlisted. I think in the last clip, one of the things I said at the very end was that this one of the 2 that I've read was the one I would want to get shortlisted. Even now that I've had a lot of space from reading that book, it has stuck with me. That book has such lyrical, beautiful writing, and I am really happy that it made it on the shortlist. The next book that got shortlisted is Melville by Rodrigo Frazon, translated by Will Vanderheiden. This one's published by Open Letter. This is one of the ones that I had sort of been contemplating reading because I did suspect that this one would get shortlisted. This one's gotten a lot of praise. I think book prizes tend to generally like it when contemporary authors are taking on classical literature and literary figures, and this one definitely fits that because it's about Herman Melville, but this isn't typically a premise of a book that I would be interested in. So we shall see. I'm a little bit nervous that this one is gonna win. If it does win, I have heard that the audiobook narration of this makes the book a little bit more consumable, so I'll probably pick that up. But yeah, so Melville made it. I suspected that it probably would. Next up, we have Lesser Ruins by Mark Hager. This is published by Coffee House Press. This one has a really stunning cover. This is probably the other book that I would have predicted to make it in addition to Melville. But this one also is one that I am dreading to win a bit because it's just a premise that I'm not typically interested. I don't generally like following the insane ramblings of a man, but we shall see how this one feels. I think it's taking on grief, and I do really like that as a theme, so I wouldn't be upset if this one won. Again, I haven't read it, so it might be really, really amazing, but it's just on the premise, it's not my bag. So that is Lesser Ruins. And then we have The Case of Jem by Vera Mutavcheva, translated by Angela Rodell, published by Sandorf Passage. This one is the really chunky book on the list that's about the Ottoman Empire, and I think it's told from a series of perspectives. It's like a trial that's going on, and different people are giving their statements, essentially, like witness statements, but of course during the Ottoman Empire. So yeah, this one, is definitely chunky. I've heard great things about it, and I do think I could potentially like this. I don't know why, somewhere in my head, I got convinced that this was a part of a series, but I literally cannot confirm that information anywhere, so I think I've made it up. But if anybody knows anything about that, please let me know down below. Again, I couldn't confirm that that was real, so I'm gonna go forward thinking it's a standalone. But yeah, I've heard great things about this and think I could really enjoy it. And then lastly, Your Absence is Darkness by Jan Kalman Steffanson, translated by Philip Roughton. This one's published by Biblioasis, and this is one of the ones that I was thinking about reading for this video, and I am actually going to be starting it today. So that's very exciting. Yeah, interesting. I think I'm definitely not surprised by Melville and Lesser Ruins. Outside of those two, I couldn't have really guessed what I thought was going to be on the short list. Very happy for Like a Sky Inside, and I'm excited that another book I'm reading in this video has the potential to be the winner. So I might have already read the winner, and that would be fantastic. The other thing I should mention is I did also already start To and Fro. So obviously this did not get longlisted, but I own it. I'm going to read it, and I started it early this morning. I'm only 40 pages in, but I'm really enjoying this so far. It's got a super kind of like light, jaunty naivety about it, and I am finding the character that we're following interesting. I'm starting this reading the To side. You can start by reading Fro, which is the blue side, or To, doesn't matter. I've started with To. So I will give you more of an update in my next clip whenever I sit down with you again. But yeah, interesting shortlist. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this shortlist, because I would love to hear. And I'll check back in with you all when I've started Your Absence is Darkness and when I've read a little bit more of To and Fro. So I'll see you all then. Bye.
And here we are again. I have read the first half of To and Fro. Specifically, I have read To, so that is basically half of the book. And I have stopped here so I could give an update before I switched over to Fro. So I didn't ruin what the reveal of what Fro is for myself before I chatted with you. So To, I will say, is so lovely. It's so lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed that section. I cried twice. I teared up twice, and that doesn't happen very often for me when I'm reading books. And honestly, it wasn't this like sad cry. It was like a cry of happiness and I don't know, just like fullness, contentedness. And it was just such a joy to be in this character's head. So we're following our main character, Ani, or is it Annie? I'm gonna go with Ani for now, although is her name Anna Marie? We don't know exactly how old she is, but kind of developmentally you have an inkling of maybe around the age range that she is, but that's never confirmed or denied. And she is living at this lost and found place where there is the captain, there is the cook, and there is the caretaker. And at the very beginning of the novel, the captain says that he is leaving. He leaves, and our main character, Ani, decides to go after him. So she embarks on this quest. She's very naive, so she takes some supplies. She takes one of the kittens from the barn and goes on her way and encounters all of these people and makes all of these connections and learns so much about the world as she ventures out trying to find the captain. You're also getting some flashbacks to her life with her mother, which she calls the other story. I think that's what she calls it. If not, it's something close to that. The other story. You learn more about their relationship. You learn more about why her mother is not currently with her. Oh my God, this book is such a balm for the soul. When she's at the study house, oh my God, that section killed me. This is told in basically like little vignettes, and they're 1 to 3 pages long. And she's just such a child. I think this book does a really good job of portraying an actual child's voice and mindset. And even though there are some profound thoughts that she has, they're sort of written in a way that you could believe a child was actually having that thought. Because children do all of a sudden kind of come out with these profound things every time and again. It's sentimental in exactly the type of way that I like. It's really focused on human connection, what it means to be a person and to have purpose. And it's just really, really lovely. That is overall the word I would use to describe this. There are some harder moments, but it's told again through the eyes of a child who isn't weighed down by the burdens that build up over a lifetime yet. And oh God, it's so good. So I do have some predictions for what I think Fro is going to be. I have a main prediction that I think is most likely, but then I have a couple secondary predictions that all of them I would be happy with. I'm so excited to go into the next section and see what the new perspective shift is. So I really can't wait. When I finish, I'm gonna check back in when I finish the book. I won't spoil, how do I talk about the book? I'm gonna have to talk about what the other perspective is because other people might read this from the Fro side. I don't really know. Also, I just want to talk about the quality of this book. It is so well made. It feels so good holding it in your hands. It's the perfect combination of floppy but stiff, so you know it's durable. And I just love holding it and reading it. It's phenomenal. So congrats to Bellevue Literary Press for that alone. I will check in with you when I have finished the Fro side. Then we will be wrapping up this vlog. Okay, we are back for what I think is going to be the last clip of this vlog, but strap in because it's going to be a long one. So I realized in my last clip, I totally forgot to tell you about Your Absence is Darkness, which I had started. I was only 10% of the way in. And I will say, just spoiler in advance, I decided to DNF it. So let me tell you what this book is about, at least so far. So you get dropped in the POV of an older man who has amnesia, and he is kind of bopping around trying to gather these like pieces, memories from his life essentially. Then you get the POV of a younger woman who has had this interaction with a farmer that was very memorable to her, and she thinks she might be in love with him, and so she decides to go on a journey to see him again, sort of profess her feelings and see if he feels the same way. Now, this book is one where you're intentionally not given information and dropped headfirst into the story. You're meant to mirror the experience of the first POV that you're in, which is the guy who has amnesia, right? He doesn't know what the heck is going on, and neither do we. And you're just along for the ride. The reason why I decided to DNF this is I had the feeling that I knew what the moral or like the message of this story was going to say at the end already, just being 10% of the way in. And if I was going to have to read another 400 pages to get there, and that is in fact what it ended up being, I was going to be let down. So I figured I should just cut my losses now and say, it's not totally for me. Do I know that that's where the book is going to end up? Absolutely not. I do not know that, but I had a strong sense and I wasn't loving the book so far. So I just felt like another 400 pages is a big investment for a book I'm not loving when there are so many books that I would love to read. So I put that one down, and I can tell you that book did not end up winning. It was shortlisted, but it did not end up winning. So I will not be reading it again or coming back to it. If you like these types of tales where you are just dropped in and you get to slowly kind of see things come together, you get to feel lost and hear a lot of kind of philosophical ramblings along the way, that book might be a great fit for you. Now, interestingly, the other book that I'm going to be talking about, To and Fro by Leah Hager Cohen, because I have finished this now, is similar in some ways. I think depending on the direction that you read this book from. So again, this is the book that's mirrored. So there's the to side, which is this yellow side, and then there's the fro side, which is the blue side. You can start from either direction. It's two beginnings, no end. That's the phrase that comes up in the book itself. I started from the to side, which I talked about previously. That side has similarities to Your Absence is Darkness because you're really kind of plopped into this character, but that one is much more chronological, much more linear. And I felt like easier to follow in that sense. There's still a lot of guessing, wondering what's going on. There's a lot of philosophical ramblings like the other one, but this I think had the plot trajectory that fit more with my reading style. This was also more sentimental. We're getting the perspective of a child in this one, and I somehow resonated with that more, which is surprising to me as well. So let's talk about the fro side. I overall still continue to really enjoy this book. I'm going to end on I think it's really good, but it's not a book that I absolutely love. And I did like the fro side slightly less. Similar to the other side, it's still, following our protagonist on a journey of life in a way. And I did guess after reading the to side what fro was sort of going to be. And I don't think that hindered my enjoyment of it. I think I was hoping that it would be that, and I'm glad that it was. Fro did not have the magic that to had for me. It had its own magic, but the magic was less magical for me personally. How many times can I say magic? I don't want to fully get into what either one is about because I feel like that's part of the journey of the story that you get to go on. And also, it's not really about one thing. It's about many, many things at once. It's really just about life and how expansive that can really be. And this novel feels expansive in a lot of ways. And there was actually a passage in Fro that I wanted to read to you that I felt like helped talk about the message of the book, at least one of the messages of the book. It says, "And yet she wondered. The creative writing unit had planted within her the seeds of a question. Might it be possible to create something beyond your control? To imagine something into being that yet had a life of its own, an unruliness, an ability to disobey, perhaps to invent you in return." That passage, not only being very lovely, gets to one of the things that the book is really bringing up quite frequently. And it's sort of like this, like the power of language, right? The power of stories. What do stories provide to us as humans? How they might be living things in their own way. Yeah, this book was just so lovely. It really does such an excellent job of speaking to that childlike part in all of us and has really good representation of the ways that kids can see things in a unique perspective and that we still have the capacity to see as adults. So yeah, this book was so fantastic in so many ways. I'm so glad that I read this because of this prize. I would not have picked it up otherwise, I don't believe. And I will remember this one for a very long time. So I thoroughly enjoyed it and would highly recommend this one. If you just want something that kind of gives you life, like lights your soul up in a way, this is absolutely fantastic for that. So that is To and Fro. And that means I have read all the books that I'm going to read for this video at least. So a little bit of a recap for you. And I need to move because my foot is falling asleep. So we started with Like a Sky Inside. And I would say that that is probably my favorite. I think that slightly edges out To and Fro for me. So my ranking would be Like a Sky Inside, To and Fro in second place, and then Gifted third. Your Absence is Darkness I didn't finish, so I'm not gonna rank that. And let me tell you about the winner. So the winner was announced a couple of days ago, and the winner was, drumroll please, Melville, which honestly, I fucking knew it. I fucking knew Melville was going to win. I just had a sense. It's a story that I think prizes will really gravitate towards. I talked about this a little bit earlier in the vlog. So I am planning to read that one. I'm probably not going to get to that one in March. I'll probably get to it in April just because I have a ton of reading that I have to do for other things. But I am going to read Melville hopefully next month, and then I'll talk about it in my wrap up and see how it ranks amongst the other 3 that I have read. If you have read for this prize at all, please let me know how your reading experience has been going and what you've thought of the books that I mentioned in this video. I'm now questioning if I should pick up some of the other books on the list, because after attempting Melville, I'll have at least read or attempted half of the original long list. So if you think I would really love something else from the list that I haven't gotten to yet, please also put that down below. I would love to get some suggestions if I should continue on. And I will leave you all here. So I really appreciate you coming along on this, what I think is going to be a pretty long vlog. I'm so thankful for the Republic of Consciousness Prize US and Canada for existing and bringing these books into my life and for celebrating small independent presses. It's a wonderful thing to celebrate indeed. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.